So when you're spinning out because you're about to be up for an interview for a job you really want, and someone says, mindset's everything, and you want to punch them in the face, this is what you do instead.
I'll have what she's having.
Welcome to another edition of
She Talks Confidence podcast.
Welcome back. This is the She Talks Confidence podcast. As usual, this is Tony, your host, and once again, a fantastic guest. And I have a quick question for you. Do you want to figure out how to train your thinking to get everything you want? If you do, then you've come to the right place, I'm thinking, right? Because that's what the new book is, Think It. The author or executive coach, your CV is a mile long. So just the executive coach, author, and what else? Primo,
Yeah, I mean, I have a coaching company, but yeah, those are the main points.
All those, the main things. It's Sarah Centrella. Sarah, how are you?
Oh, I'm great. I'm so glad to be here. Thanks, Anthony.
Being as successful as you are and being a coach for 15 years and an author of 4 books and the new one we're going to talk about, Think It, coming out, how did you get there? What was the impetus behind that? What things in your life happened to shape you into being the executive coach and the author of personal growth and development?
My story really starts in 2009 when I am at that point married to my high school sweetheart. We have 3 little kids. We have babies, twins that are a year and a half old, and my son was 5. And I suddenly find a text message on my husband's phone while he's in the shower that tells me he is having an affair. And this is something that I, as a woman, had literally, which it sounds crazy looking back, but I had never thought about it. I had been with this man since I was 16 years old. It had never once crossed my mind. I didn't have any intuition or anything until 30 seconds before I saw that phone. And it blew my world to pieces. I literally walked in, turned the water off on the shower. He was soaked up. I said, get out. He went around soaking wet, kissed the kids goodbye, threw his clothes on, threw his ring at me, and walked out the door. Wow. And the thing that was even more devastating about all of that is that it was at the worst financial possible times. We had just lost our house in the foreclosure in the housing bubble. We had just filed bankruptcy after having the twins because I had to quit my job and stay home with them. So literally the day that he left, we were late on all the bills. And that night I just remember like laying on the floor and I'd been like crying so hard. My face was like stuck to the hardwood. And I was doing a lot of women particular do. We always problem solve. Like we're trying to like take care of everybody and figure all this out. And I just kept on going, can't go back to work because I can't afford daycare. How can I even get a job? Just all this stuff. And I kept on thinking like, there's no way I can do this. I cannot do this. And I had this almost like universe, whatever name you want to give it, just spoke back to me. It was like, what if you can? And that was the only ray of hope that I had in this whole situation. Because when I was laying on that floor, going through all the different scenarios, I realized the bank account wasn't in my name. Not that we had any money in there anyway. The car was in his name. I had no credit because we had just filed bankruptcy, no job, no way to get a job. And so all of these things just felt like this insurmountable mountain where I was like, there's no way. I don't know what to do tomorrow type thing. And in that moment where I got that little voice back that just said, what if you can? It literally helped me just figure out next steps because I was like, if I could, what would I do? What would be the first thing I would do? And so it helped me figure out the logistical part of, okay, sell your shit. Okay. You know what I mean? To start to put your life back together. But then over time, it really started becoming a bigger anchor point for me where I was like, if you have to rebuild your whole life, what if you built one you liked? What if you built a good one? What if you could still provide a great childhood for your kids? And so that idea of what if, using it in a positive way to open my mind and open doors versus how we would normally use what if to tear all that down, really became like the starting point for everything that's followed since.
Your what if, did that start after you took care of your stuff, like until where you got sort of okay with everything, with the crisis that was happening, or was that at the same time?
The initial one was honestly that very first night. So I think by constantly asking myself, what if I could, it helped me do those tactical, like little things. Just whenever you're going through something difficult, crazy, even if it's a bad day, the only thing your brain wants to focus on is everything that just went wrong, right? It's very hard for your brain to like step away from that and get logical thinking in place and
Yeah.
kind of look for solutions. And what if did that for me? It helped me figure out some next steps. And then once it had been doing that for tactical things like, okay, go sell your stuff on Craigslist, go look for an apartment. If you could get an apartment, what would you do? Type thing. Then I started really looking at it from, and all of this, mind you, I was not conscious of any of what I was doing here at all because I was just trying to survive. But what I really did do is I really started using it as a way to enable daydreaming. Like, what if I could have a good life? What would that look like? And then I would daydream about it because my everyday life at that point was so dark that the daydreams made me feel better. And now I know the visualization, that's what visualization does. And I had no idea of any self-help concepts or anything like that. I just was like, this is my happy place. I'm going to go there as much as I can. I'm going to be thinking of all these, what if things go right? What if this, what if that? And lo and behold, like I did my first vision board to represent what I was daydreaming about. And again, didn't think anything of it, didn't think anything would happen. But a year and a half after he left, and about a year after I was really looking at my boards and stuff, it started coming to life, like straight up, almost sci-fi style, where it was like the exact thing that was on my board was the exact thing I just did. And I was like, wait a second, this is a little crazy, but what is going on here? Did I do this? I feel like I did, but I don't know how I did it. And so it just opened up this world for me where I was like, I'm going to figure this out and share it as I go. And so that's really the origin of all 4 books.
You had so much leverage and you used that leverage and you finally, it was like, I got to do something. And I'm assuming a lot of it had to do with the fact that you thought, I have these kids to take care of. Because I know as a parent, 100, right? 100% that comes in as from being a parent. You're like,
I would have literally got a one-way ticket to the end of the earth, never come back.
Like living in a shack in Belize or something. Yeah, exactly. Just bailing. When you were talking about your incredible story, the question I initially came up in my head was, when you were young or growing up, did you have vision boards? Did you have dreams? Did you daydream? And then slowly through the process of being in your situation, being in the relationship, did that diminish, or did you put yourself like lower on the totem pole in terms of priorities because you were a mom? Was that there prior to you rediscovering it?
That's a great question. And yes, I've been a dreamer my whole life. I was totally the kid that in the back seat of the car was staring out, like literally imagining a whole new world or a different world than what I was in. And so my whole life, and I think what I've found over the last 15 years of coaching is that there's probably about a 50-50 split between people who are natural daydreamers like that, who've just always been able to do that their whole life, or also think visually, think in pictures, think in like almost a movie in their head. But then there's the other half of people who are more analytical and they think in numbers or spreadsheets or facts or whatever. And the daydream part is difficult. So now I teach how to get both of those. But the very first board that I ever did was after I watched Oprah's show when she was talking way back when about The Secret, and vision boards were like really popular. And I remember doing one. So it was probably 3 years before all this had happened. And I did one and I really loved it. It made me really happy. Of course, it was just like magazine cutouts and stuff because I didn't know better back then. And I remember my husband coming home and just being like, what are you doing? Like, you actually spent time doing that today? Like, we're having problems paying the mortgage. What are you doing? This is insane. And I was so embarrassed, I hid it like under the bed. And so then it was one of those things that by the time I was getting on my own 2 feet a little bit and have my first job, I was like, no one's going to tell me that's stupid anymore. And
right, exactly.
That kind of happy. I like pretty pictures. Pretty pictures make me happy. And so that was literally the reason why I first did it. And I wound up just like coding my whole cube. I was inside sales at the time, calling corporate inside sales all the time. So I just plastered my cube with all these pictures that made me happy of a different life. And they were like pictures of vacation or whatever. But again, didn't expect anything to come of it. They made me happier than staring at it blank wall.
That brings up a good point. 2 things that I noticed is the first thing is that your husband was not supportive.
No.
And how important is it to have a supportive tribe, at least one person around you that is 100% behind you in the stuff that you do? It's so important, right?
I think that's the dream scenario. And hopefully everybody does have that. I quite honestly did not. I did not for years. My savior was I started blogging
Ah,
because I didn't have anyone to talk to and I had no
mhm,
support. And so I found writing and I started blogging and started sharing what was happening. And honestly, that became my support system. And it was the start of the internet. It was the start of all this stuff, or not internet, but like social media in that way. And that's how I found my tribe, where I found someone who was like, hey, that
mm,
happened to me too. And while I was going through it, I wasn't on social media. Social media wasn't even a thing. I had never
yeah.
even heard of Facebook back in 2008, 2009. That gave me some community. So I just want to say to anyone out there, because a lot of people don't have that person. I think it's a dream scenario to have people in your life that support you and
Mhm.
support your dreams, but a lot of us didn't and don't. And you can still live any dream you want and create any life you want with or without that.
I like the fact that since you did not have that, you reached out. You were vulnerable and you reached out and you blogged about and were probably very honest about stuff. And people resonated with that, which is a really good point. The
Yeah.
other thing I want to bring up is the vision board thing, which is the first question that because I have my clients do the vision board too. The first thing is that they ask me is, well, what do I put on there? And does it have to be specific or general? And then the second thing they say is, then do I have to try to manifest to the secret, right? The law of attraction, the manifestation. Do I have to think and manifest and live in that reality every single day? What was your experience in terms of manifesting the things on your board?
So I have a kind of a whole method that I've found that really works, and a couple things. The first one, and my first book lays out the whole method. There's 9 steps to it. But the first one is when it comes to just the tactical board, like the actual pictures, the in my opinion, it's a total waste of time to get magazines, to do anything like that. That's scrapbooking or freaking
Mhm.
collaging. And we did that in college. We're too grown for that. Like that to me is an utter waste of time, because there's no possibility that the editor in chief of Elle magazine knows what my dreams are. You know what I mean? So I'm not going to find anything in there that my brain thought of first. Instead, it has to be super intentional. So the first part I always have all of my clients do is you have to create the dream first. You have to really ask yourself, what do I want? And this is what I was doing without noticing it back then when I was
Mhm.
daydreaming. I was thinking, now I'm in corporate, I want to be successful. So what does that look like? And if I'm successful, I literally visualize myself as in a suit or in the corner office or all of those things, especially on hard days. So that's when I would really go to the daydreams, because I'm like, there's going to come a day where
Mhm.
I don't have to sit in this cube anymore and I can be out with clients. And
Mhm.
when I first started manifesting from that board a year and a half later, that was actually the moment where I realized that I was, because I had a picture of New York City in this kind of center of my wall cube. And I remember I'd taken a new job. My CEO would come to me and he's like, hey, we have this thing we have to go to in New York. And he's running down all these things. I really want you to go. Is there any way, whatever? And so as a mom, I'm just like going, okay, I got to get all the logistics together. And I'm printing out the itinerary and everything. And I all of a sudden look at that picture on the board and I look at the itinerary and I was like, wait, what? And that
Mhm.
whole trip, I was like, had the company black card taking clients out. And so like the contrast of being on food stamps that first year and a half and just
Mhm.
barely freaking getting by, and then all of a sudden manifesting just an alternate universe almost, was insane. And to answer your question, yes, it's around me. You can see it behind me right now. It's
Mhm.
always in my physical space. It's always around me. And it was back then. I was looking at it every day, but I wasn't thinking like, how do I get to New York? How do I get to New York? I was just like,
Right.
someday when I'm in New York, I want to take a picture like that. And so that
Cool.
is a big difference. If I know what I want, which is what I had done the daydreams, and then I had gone on Google and looked for the pictures that match my internal daydreams.
Mhm.
So that when I looked at the wall, that's where I'll take my kids when I get on vacation, when I get my first commission check. Oh, this is the type of house I want to move into when we can get a house. Oh, so they were all mine. And that's a big key and piece of it. And now I teach people to go on Pinterest and find those images, but you have to have it in your head first. And then
Start
when
with
you're
the
on
first.
Pinterest, yes, then you'll find ones that match what's in your head. That's what you're looking
Yeah,
for,
then
not the other way.
draw the through line and then get the image afterwards, and so you own it when you see it, right? From a subconscious perspective
Your
almost.
brain will recognize it
Yeah.
immediately. It's almost,
Yeah.
sometimes you'll get butterflies. You'll be like, wait, that was in my head. How is it right in front of me? So you
Yeah.
have to have it in your head first, and you have to know what you want first. And then when you're scrolling the images, it comes to life for the first time. And manifestation is the idea of a thought to reality, right? So this is almost
Hmm.
the first point of manifestation. As long as you're really clear in what you want in your head, it's the first time you're seeing a visual in front of you that before that your brain just collected and made up.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's a really cool experience, and that's the first part of all of it starting.
It's an ownership of your thought, of your dream. And so for the YouTubers that are watching, do you have one? Is that a vision board behind you? And then what's that
Yes.
particularly for? Is that for
So
like
this is
now, or is that like a collection of the past?
Yeah, so this is an entire wall at this point, and these are my historic boards because I don't want to let them go. They're my babies, and I've manifested 12 boards at this point in time. So a little bit is different years put together, but pretty much everything behind me I've already manifested. And these boards probably go back maybe close to a decade. But on average, I've been tracking it for well over a decade now. On average, I manifest about 60 to 70% of any board on any given year, which is insane, right? Most
That's
people who did a
that. Yeah.
traditional vision board back in the day
Yeah.
may manifest one thing. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a crazy good success rate on that vision. When you do that and you have one that it's full of stuff and you manifest 60 or
Yeah.
70% of it, do you find that after you manifest that part, that you are in a different mind space to where your next level of manifestation is something different than the 40% that didn't happen?
Yes and no. So both things can be true. Typically at the end of the year, I always make a new one, but first I'll go over the last one and then do my side by sides. Oh, that I did that. I forgot. I
Mhm.
totally forgot I ever had this on this board. So that will happen all the time where I'll completely forget I ever even put something either on my board here or on my boards on Pinterest. And I'll be like, oh my God, I did that. I was standing right there. I didn't even know.
Mhm.
So that's always really fun. I'll do all these side by sides and put them up on my Pinterest. And then what hasn't manifested yet, and typically they'll keep manifesting. So I've been, let's say Italy was on that very first board in my cube because I've wanted to go my whole life for 30 years. I've now been 6 times.
Mm.
So it can manifest in all these different ways and it just keeps coming and coming. So I've continued to manifest off old boards in different versions for years and years. So there's the challenge almost for me is like, what can I think up that I haven't already thought up before? Like, what is the next best and biggest version of what I want?
Mhm.
And so I do that at the beginning of the year because we're different people, right? And we ideally, if we're doing work, we're changing.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
where I was at the start of 2023 is not where I am at the start of 2026. And so
Mhm.
I have to really, I always take a whole day. I go to the water, I go down to the beach, and I really make it very intentional. And I say, who am I right now? What do I want right now to try and draw and access what that next level vision is? And it's also a time to pivot. Like you said, if there's some of the things that like, I don't even want that anymore. Here's a good example. I had everyone always asks me about this because I have a McDonald's arch
Mickey
behind
D's.
me.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this particular board, because like I said, these are historic, is probably 8 years old or so. And this was at the start of me building my business, and I coached life coaches in my method and have for years and years. And back then, I wanted it to be a franchise, or I wanted them
Mm.
to create kind of franchise. I don't even do that part of my business at all anymore.
Mm.
So over time, I was like, no, that's not in alignment anymore.
Mhm.
I want something different. So I think it's a good time to do that check in to make sure that there's still alignment, and then to be okay with letting go of what you've outgrown or
Yeah.
changed your mind on or had a taste of and was like, that's not it for me. I want to go in
Mhm.
this direction. Yeah.
Mhm. It seems like that in terms of my own personal experience in coaching and therapy is there is the group that is pretty fired up about the vision board and they're all in and they release themselves to that higher energy. They have the belief, there's like an intrinsic belief in the manifestation or the attraction to it. And they just kind of let it like you were talking about. Just then there's the other group that says, okay, I'll give it a try as a tool. Deep down inside, they may not be on board totally, but they want the results.
Yeah.
How do you get them to make the switch?
It's funny because when I started this, I was that person, right? I didn't think it was
Uh-huh.
going to work. I didn't think I was doing anything. And if you had asked me, are you putting all this up thinking you're going to manifest? I'd be like, no, I'm putting it up here because it's like wallpaper and it looks nice, and like
Yeah.
it reminds me of what I want to do.
Mhm.
It reminds me that someday things will be different than they are today, and wouldn't that be fun and whatever. So it's funny because how I teach it is honestly very logical and I use tools that literally every human who's ever achieved anything they wanted, whether it's a college degree or getting the job that they went through a long interview process with. I break that down and are like, you've done this before. Okay. The
Mhm.
perfect example
Mhm.
is speaking to a woman who's married and being like, okay, girl, remember when you were engaged? What happened then? Right? Like you built a
Mhm.
board because you had to have a visualization of what your flowers look like, what your dress looked like, what the venue looked like,
Mhm.
what your color palette would be. Or for guys, when you built your house or your dream house or you were renovating your kitchen, right? You had to have some sort of visual of this is what I want. And the perfect example is if you were going to build your dream house and you hired an architect and the architect comes over and they're asking you all these questions. Do you want a 5-story bedroom? Whatever. And if you look at him and you're like, I don't know, just do your thing. He's going to
Right.
be like, I don't have time for this shit. Figure
Yeah.
it out. Call me
Yeah.
and then you're going to have to show them samples and be like, it's like this. So, how I use manifesting is that real. It isn't woo. It isn't like we're putting pictures on. And that my first book is called Hustle, Believe, Receive. And it was really a fight back to the
Mhm.
big trend at the time, which was ask, believe, receive.
Mhm.
Because I was like, I'm sorry. I'm a single mom trying to take care of a family of 4. I've asked for a lot of shit. I got nothing.
Right.
So I think there's more to it than that. Like,
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
you might have to hustle. I think you might
Yeah.
have to do some work. I think you might have to get a freaking plan together. I think you might have to,
Mhm.
and my whole process is all those things. And then the vision, the piece of it, the visual piece of it becomes a reminder of all of that, of
Yeah.
what I've already decided I'm working towards, what I already
Mhm.
decided I wanted. And then I don't sit in front of it and meditate or whatever, but it is a place I go to when I've had a bad day, when I've had a setback, when I've had a disappointment, when I've been like, what am I doing and why am I doing this? And I'll look
Mhm.
at that and I'll be like, oh yeah, this is why.
Which brings up a good point. You have to take ownership and you have to take small actionable steps and you have to make a plan. And there's no way around it. There really isn't. Unless by some
No,
lucky chance fall into winning a lotto or some nonsense like that. But
we all know
still,
those people aren't happy. And those
yeah,
people,
yeah. I was going to say, even with all the money, never solves the problems, right? And
no,
so
no,
it all comes down to ownership. I always call it ownership. It's owning your life, owning your journey, your path, and taking those small steps to create that, and not trying to eat the whole elephant, right? So to speak.
you have to. There's just no getting around it. You ask anybody who's successful, anybody who started a business, any athlete who did what they wanted to do. There isn't one person. In the first book, I interviewed 50 of those type people that I
Mhm.
admired that were living their dream in whatever version. And that was really where I got the validation for my steps because I would talk to someone, first time I've ever had a conversation with this person, knew nothing about my steps. And just in an interview of hearing their origin story, every single step would show up. And I was
Mhm.
like, we're on to
Right?
something here.
Yeah.
So I always say I didn't make up any of this stuff. I just put it together in a process way that makes logical sense that, oh, I don't have to figure out everything new every single time. I can just
Mhm.
cut and paste.
And yeah, if you have a framework to work with, then you can go back and use the framework because it's been successful before in a different avenue or a different thing that you've done. It's just, yeah, and it's there.
Absolutely.
It's just crazy how that there's no connection. There's the lack of connection when it comes to that. I do want to finish off talking about the book. Speaking of progress and working
Yeah.
towards stuff, and I'm thinking being an author and doing books is probably part of that. On the thousands of pictures that I see behind you, or on the other visions boards that you have, the book has only been out for a couple of days, and it's Think It: How to Train Your Thinking to Get Everything You Want. And I'll just read the little subtext. It's a practical, no fluff guide to training your thoughts to break negative patterns, rewire limiting beliefs, and create lasting change in every area of your life, which is, I completely resonate with that because that's what I do with my clients,
Yeah.
right? That's what we do, is that we try to get
Yeah.
them grounded in limiting beliefs and pattern interruption on the negative and reframing things and stuff. Out of your book, I know you've talked about your book for quite a while in different
Yeah.
shows and whatnot. When it comes down to, if somebody asks you what this book is about and it's the elevator pitch, what would you say It is. And then what's the one little tidbit you would give? Because I don't want to give you the whole book away. So what's the
Yeah,
one
yeah.
little tidbit you can give us?
This is the how in mindset. So every one of my books have been an answer to my own frustration. Future boards was because everyone was talking about, again, just ask and chill and sit down and like you get a brand new life. And I was like, nope, let me figure this out. And mindset was another one. It just became like a sound bite. It became a cool quote. And I've now been teaching it now for 15 years. And most of the tools in it I've been teaching for a decade. But back when I was very first starting to figure this out, I was like, freaking, how do I change my thoughts? What is even going on in my head? How does that even work? And I could not find the answer to that. No one was saying, in this moment, when you are having a thought of scarcity, of fear, of doubt, of negative self talk, do this in this moment and you will not have that, or you will feel totally different. Or, oh, by the way, it will actually change your systemic belief so that you don't have to
Mhm.
fight that all the time. And so I've been working on the tools. The tools are super simple. Honestly, a 5-year-old could implement them. Everything that I do is just very basic, very simple. So if you have any interest in personal development, you've been around the space a lot, these concepts you've probably heard in different ways, but I'm breaking them down on what do you actually do. So when you're spinning out because you're about to be up for an interview for a job you really want, and someone says, mindset's everything, and you want to punch them in the face, this is what you do instead. Or like when you're spinning out because you just had an argument with your significant other and you're starting to like, again, think all the worst case scenarios, or the world at large is really getting to you. I know a lot of us are struggling with that. So what do I
Mhm.
do to turn those thoughts around? And or if I'm starting something new, if I want to start a business, let's say, but I don't know how to control the negative voice in my head that says, what are you doing? You're insane. Don't do that. That's a terrible idea. How do I change that so that my thoughts actually push me out the door and make me successful? So this is the how, very broken down, very exactly what to do when, how to do it. And it to me is a practice, and you just get better at it. I call it mental fitness. So it's
Mhm.
exactly like going to the gym. If you go to the gym and you take a yoga class 4 days a week for 5 years, you're going to be a lot better at yoga 5 years after than you were in the beginning. So that's what this is. Like, this is how I practice it every day so that I get long term change.
Is there something that you can a little taste that you can give maybe, or a little tidbit?
Yeah, my favorite
Just kind
tool,
of
I'll give yeah, there's so many, but I'll give the most basic one. And a lot of people have heard about it before, I am statements. And I know you're a lot about confidence, right? You talk a lot about confidence. So
Mhm.
to me, this is the number one, easiest, simplest way to genuinely change your belief about yourself and build confidence from within that is unshakable, that no one can talk you out of. And you want to write down 25 positive I am statements. And here's where everyone goes wrong. They're usually writing statements that are who they think they are, right? We
Mhm.
don't want any of that. We want all aspirational. This is who I wish I was. If I was my version of Oprah, or I was my version of
Mhm.
Beyonce, or whoever it is that you look up to, how would I then describe myself? In other words, every single one of those 25 should be a lie about what I believe right now. Because if I use it as a practice, just like lifting weights, I get stronger over time. And I always have my clients look in the mirror, do it morning and night when they brush their teeth, and say them out loud. And so you have to talk to yourself. You have to say, I am beautiful. I am powerful. I am successful. I am learning. I'm getting better every day, things like that. And when you do that and you're consistent and you do it as a consistent twice a day practice, it only takes about 2 weeks for those brand new I am statements to come in and start changing your decision making,
Mhm. Mm.
changing how you show up,
Mhm.
changing how people see you and view you, changing opportunities that come to you. It's so crazy. And then if you're very consistent, after about on average 3 months, there's probably 10 of those 25 that you're like, I don't even need this anymore. Try and talk me out of that thing because that's
Right.
my DNA now. It's
Mhm.
just who I am. So it's the coolest way to transform. And it takes 5 minutes a day and it's free.
Yeah. It's simple, but it's difficult for the fact that a lot of people, the reasons why they're where they're at in the first place is they don't have the discipline, the rituals, the all that stuff
Yep.
to do that. And it's a matter of you have got to sit down and you have to invest. You have to own it. You have to be
Yep.
accountable for doing that. every single day. And discipline, right? There's got to be
Yeah.
a level of discipline when it comes to
No
that,
getting
because
around it.
there's no easy way. I'm right. That's the whole thing. My clients
Yeah,
say,
there's
well,
not a forward button,
yeah,
sorry.
yeah. I need to get better in a month because I'm getting married and stuff. I go, good luck, because
Yeah,
it's like
right?
it's starting in February for the beach body in June. Ain't gonna happen. Maybe
Yep.
next June after that, but not that June, because it takes a lot of investment. But aren't you worth it? The rhetorical question of the day.
Yeah. And
I
not
mean,
only
gee,
that, it's so quick that you start feeling better. And that's
yeah,
honestly the one thing that I would warn against, is that after that first 2-week period, you're like, you're starting to feel good. Because when's the last time you
yeah,
talked
oh
nice to
yeah,
yourself, first of all? Like,
right, yeah, yeah.
us women, we're known for being freaking brutal.
Oh, brutal.
So this might be the first time you've ever talked nice to yourself in your whole life. So you
Yeah,
start feeling good. It changes your mood, changes everything, and then you
yeah.
forget to do it.
And then you let
And
it
if you
slide,
forget to do
right? Yeah.
it, we're gonna go right back. So you
Yeah.
have to be consistent.
But you're not done. And if you look at how to change habits, it's always 22 days is the research,
Yeah,
30
at least
days or
30.
whatever, to make it relatively solid. But you got to keep going. You just have to keep going. So the book is Think It, How to Train Your Thinking to Get Everything You Want. And that's your fourth book, right? So you are wildly published. And it just came out a couple days ago. But can you throw out where to get a hold of you and where to get a hold of the book and all that fun stuff?
Yeah, so you can follow on Instagram, just Sarah Centrella. Go to sarahcentrella.com. Lots of resources there. Have the podcast. There's also a companion workbook that you can grab and do all the journaling. You can get it for free in my shop with the code READER. Yeah.
Oh, great. That's perfect. Thanks, sir. I really appreciate it. This was a great conversation. Again, we could talk about a million different things, or just keep chatting about this. It's just because it's such a powerful thing, right? So for me, obviously, it is the usual. It's Tony at theconfidencedoc.com. It's TonyDufresne.com, but you can't spell it because nobody can. So you go to theconfidencedoc.com and you can see any of my podcasts over the last 10 years or so and YouTube videos on Tony Dufresne, PhD. Hope things are good, and I will see you next week. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks so much.